Hey everybody, I'm your host, Dylan Ashburn. Welcome to DEAZZ Netz.
Hey, so Dylan, how do you think the major offseason for the 2020 trades, how do you think that had an impact on the upcoming NBA season?
I think these major trades that took place during the offseason were very beneficial to all teams, because last season we
Okay.
had a lot of players, star players on teams having major injuries and stuff.
Okay.
And we just needed that spark that'll help the teams get back on track. So I think it's very beneficial.
So what are those trades? Like, what are the beneficial trades that took place?
Well, one of the beneficial trades we have, one of the main ones in conversation, Russell Westbrook from the
Okay.
Houston Rockets traded to Washington Wizards for John Wall.
Okay.
Now, this may be beneficial to the Washington Wizards, but in my view, I don't think it's beneficial to the Houston Rockets. Because John Wall has been inactive for 2 years.
Okay.
He hasn't been playing since 2018. And when he last played, he only averaged 20.7 points, 44.4 field goal percentage, and 8.7 assists. Now, those assist numbers and those playmaking skills can really help him get his teammates on track.
Okay.
But Russell Westbrook averaged 27.4 points per game, 7.0 assists, and 7.9 rebounds. And that could really damage the Houston Rockets because you lose a consistent player like that.
That makes
And
sense.
they apparently they say that they have faith in John Wall and his revival coming back to the NBA. But at the same time, are you gonna have faith, or for business do you want your point guards to be consistent? So you need to have a consistent player.
And Russell Westbrook don't present that consistency.
No, he's consistent.
He's consistent.
It's
Okay.
John Wall.
John Wall is
Because
not,
he hasn't been active for
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Russell Westbrook, he's progressively increasing his field goal percentage and his points per game percentage.
Okay. All right. So Russell is making improvements. So it's like bet on this guy. That would make more sense.
And also on top of that, there's the Rockets star player James Harden. There are rumors like James Harden might want to be traded to the Brooklyn Nets. And, and he said he started explaining like a trade is going to help him stay with the Houston Rockets. But if you're losing a player who averaged more than a point guard, and you're trading him for somebody who hasn't even been active for 2 years, how do you think that's going to affect your star player who apparently is considering leaving the team?
Right. So James Harden, he's more gearing more towards the trade. He wants Westbrook to come over.
He wants a trade that can help him stay on the team. He wants a beneficial trade that will make him stay with the Rockets.
Okay.
Because right now he's very convinced that he should go to the Brooklyn Nets.
Wow. Okay. So how do you think? Now let's just say if James Harden did go to the Brooklyn Nets, how do you think that would be beneficial for the Brooklyn Nets? Like just transition from Houston to Brooklyn. Just do you think he'll have that chemistry with the guys that's already on the Brooklyn Nets?
I think James Harden will be beneficial for the Brooklyn Nets, but I don't know if it will be good for his chemistry. Because James Harden, one of his main things is his field goal percentage. He takes a lot of shots. He's a pass first teammate, but when he's in actual games, you see his dominance of scoring more. So for the most part, I think it will be very beneficial to the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie Irving. His last season, he got injured, his shoulder injury. But in the 27 games that he played, he averaged 27.4 points and scored 500 points in 27 games. And that 27.4 points has been the height of his entire NBA career. So with both of their styles, with James Harden and Kyrie Irving, Kyrie Irving is a very dominant scorer. But if you look at Brooklyn Nets games, Kyrie Irving increased the amount of assists that the Brooklyn Nets had during the NBA season. And those assists could help out James Harden. It could also help out the whole entire team. Plus the addition of Kevin Durant. He was injured in the playoffs and was injured in the 2019 NBA Finals. And now he is returning to the NBA this season. And the last time he played, he averaged 26 points per game. So with James Harden almost averaging 30 points, and the same for Kyrie and Kevin Durant as well, and all of their assist numbers helping out the team, and with the Brooklyn Nets being a mainly 3-point shooting team, I think this can really be good for the Brooklyn Nets. But how would it affect the Houston Rockets? With most NBA trades, you want the trades to be mutual. And right now, that trade's not going to be mutual. You're losing your star player that keeps getting you to the playoffs, and he's interested in leaving to the Brooklyn Nets. Who the Brooklyn Nets, they've been in a drought forever. And with Kyrie Irving coming back to the Brooklyn Nets, and now you have Kevin Durant as well, plus maybe James Harden, that's gonna get them to the playoffs every single time.
Now, is it common that a team actually fall into this position where they don't do a fair trade? A star player like James Harden, you got me? And is that common where a team actually do a trade? Because if you trade off James Harden, but then you have coming in, you have Russell Westbrook coming in. He's not going to be a replacement for James Harden. Like, he's not going to be that type of replacement. So is this common to happen during a trade season where a star player is leaving, one team, while that particular team is getting a trade as well? Like, they're not getting a replacement. Is that common? Does that happen a lot?
That is very common. That's very common. And those are one of the main things that confuses me about NBA trades. But it's also business. And it's also the player's desire to go to the team that they want to. And I think that's all about the player. I don't think that's all about the team.
Okay.
Because it's the player's desire. It's like, for example, Anthony Davis. He moved away from the New Orleans Pelicans and went to the Los Angeles Lakers. And that really hurt the New Orleans Pelicans because they lost their star player and they hadn't been in the playoffs for a while. So that really hurt the team, but it benefited the Lakers because LeBron had a new star player.
Gotcha. And you can actually develop a star player. I mean, it's possible if they already have most of the skills necessary to help lead the team, get the guys going, get the rest of the team going. It's kind of like you can almost develop that person into being that star player. They might not coming over, expectations might not have been of them being taking that lead role, but by default, the fact that now you have a star player that's leaving the team, and here comes this other player who no one expects to be the star player now, but they do have the potential. By default, they can easily just fall into that position, and you never know what happened.
Yep, very much agree. And some more of the major offseason trades that happened.
So Dylan, tell me more about the 2020 offseason trade. I heard there was some things going on with the Hornets. What's going on with them?
Yes, so the Hornets have acquired Gordon Hayward of the Boston Celtics. He joined the Boston Celtics in 2017.
Okay.
And this was his final season, the 2019 to 2020 NBA season.
Okay.
And now he is joining the Charlotte Hornets. So Gordon Hayward, his previous season, he averaged 17.5 points, 50% field goal shooting, 6.7 rebounds, and 7.1 assists. So that was very beneficial to the Boston Celtics. But now, how will this benefit the Hornets? The Hornets they have a young roster. They have a lot of young players coming into potential. So when you have a veteran like Gordon Hayward joining the Charlotte Hornets, that can be a huge role model for other players that need to develop into their prime.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes pretty sense. Pretty good sense.
Yep. And more trades we have here. You have Drew Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans joining the Milwaukee Bucks. So now you have this very skilled point guard who averages 19.1 points per game, joining the reigning MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo. So when you have that and you have that together, that's going to create a new skill bond. Because Giannis, there were rumors about Giannis potentially leaving the Milwaukee Bucks. But now, how will Giannis react now that he has Drew Holiday, a skilled point guard, who is now joining his side?
So you think that's going to make him convince him to stay?
Yeah, I think that's really going to convince him to stay. Because what he needed was he needed another skilled player other than Chris Middleton to help him out on the floor.
So he has that motivation to stay.
Yep.
There it is.
But when they acquired Drew Holiday, they lost something.
Okay, so Drew Holiday, I hear that he went to the Milwaukee Bucks. So who did the Bucks have to sacrifice, to get him? How did that look?
With the Bucks had to sacrifice, they had to sacrifice Eric Bledsoe, their starting point guard on the Milwaukee Bucks, for Drew Holiday.
Okay.
Now, Drew Holiday and Eric Bledsoe are very skilled point guards in the NBA. Drew Holiday averages 19.1 points per game, and his defense is just as well as his offense. So I think that can really help out the Milwaukee Bucks equally on defense and offense. And with the Milwaukee Bucks, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, an MVP, and also a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. When you have that and you're bringing another player who can have a skilled defense,
Yep.
that can really help your overall rank and your success in the whole entire season.
Okay.
Now with the New Orleans Pelicans, what they need is a veteran player who can bring experience to their team and help them thrive as they play in games. Now you have Eric Bledsoe, who averages 14.9 points per game, 5.4 assists, and 47.5 field goal percentage shooting. So I think that could be very beneficial to the New Orleans Pelicans.
That's great. Yep, definitely help those young guys on the bench.
Yep. And then another, as something similar to this, another young player who's very skilled and is going to a team that needs assistance. Now, this is kind of the opposite. Kelly Oubre, who was with the Phoenix Suns, is now going to the Golden State Warriors. And as we know, Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson were both injured, and Klay Thompson was injured in 2019. Stephen Curry was injured last season. So with those two injuries, the Warriors need a revival.
They do.
Both players,
Absolutely.
both Steph Curry and Klay Thompson averaged more than 20 points per game, and that was what the Warriors were most known for.
Yep.
They always had a lineup when they had players who could go above 20 points, and that's what led them to their dynasty that lasted through 2015 and 2019. But when Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson got injured, all their success in those 4 seasons it went down.
Away. Yeah.
Last season, they were in last place in the NBA season.
Yeah, and that's not even heard of. Yeah, looking at their dynasty.
Yeah, it's just like you went from all noble to not so noble anymore. And now you have Kelly Oubre, a young player who averages 18.7 points per game, 45.2 field goal percentage shooting, and 6.4 rebounds and 1.5 assists. He is a young player in the making who is very skilled. And when you have a young player who, as I say, you have the players who can average more than 20 points. Kelly Oubre averages 18.7 points, and he's young. That could really help the revival of the Warriors with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. And even during those injuries, they lost some of their key players. They lost Kevin Durant. He went to the Brooklyn Nets. And they lost one of their key players that's been with the Warriors for quite a while now, Andre Iguodala. And he wasn't really heard of in his scoring, but his defense and his ability to just see plays before it happens is what led to Warriors to their success. When he got in the NBA finals, when he got major steals and blocks on LeBron James, that's what led them to jumping out and grabbing the lead by the time they got into the finals. And then when you lose a strong player like that, that can really damage the team. So I think Kelly Oubre is just the person they need for this team. And then you also have the Phoenix Suns. They acquired Chris Paul. And the Phoenix Suns, their whole entire roster is very young, and they are all superstars. For example, Devin Booker, a young player, averages 26.6 points a game, 48.9 field goal percentage shooting, 4.2 rebounds, and 6.5 assists.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And he is a very young player playing for the Phoenix Suns. And when you have a veteran point guard like Chris Paul, who averages 17.6 points per game, is 6.7 assists, that can really help out with the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, the Phoenix Suns, what they needed was they had almost all the right players, but what they needed somebody who could help them get through the playoffs. I think Chris Paul is just the right player. His playmaking skills, like almost like Andre Iguodala, but just not on defense, it's on offense. His ability to just make plays and get those passing that can get you those big time buckets and big situations. Yeah, that can really help out with the Phoenix Suns and can give them a better chance of getting in the playoffs. They didn't make it to the playoffs last season, but were very close. They came in the NBA bubble and were on an 8-game win streak. They were really trying to get to the playoffs, but they didn't make it. What they need was that veteran player to come onto the team, you know.
So now they have that possibility.
Yeah, I think that really helps out. And then for the Phoenix Suns, you also like Jay Crowder. He was with the Miami Heat, and now he is going to the Phoenix Suns. He averaged 11.8 points, but his 3-point percentage was 44.5%. And Jay Crowder, he is also another veteran player. And when you have another veteran player like that who is consistent with his scoring and consistent with his 3-point percentage, that can really help get the Phoenix Suns up into the playoffs. And when you have these two players going to the playoffs, and you already have a young roster who average 15 points per game, that's going to be a big threat on the Western Conference. Like star players on the Western Conference, of course, you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. You have all these great players. James Harden, Russell Westbrook.
Yep.
All these great players. But now these new threats are coming, and it's like, are you gonna last that long? Like it's like it crossed the whole entire NBA, both conferences, Eastern and Western. You have these new threats coming in. It's like, will these players that have been in first place or second place for so long, will they be in first place or second place again? Will they even make it to the playoffs? I'm like, that's a big conversation. You have many young players coming up, and you have many veteran players making their moves and making teams improve. You know, so that's a very big conversation.
Yeah, and like you said, new threats. So,
for example, Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. I think that's going to be a pretty huge threat in the Eastern Conference. Like Milwaukee Bucks, for the past few seasons, they've been dominating the Eastern Conference. You know, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2-time MVP 2 years in a row, and that's pretty big. And he's been carrying the Milwaukee Bucks. But the thing is, you carry the Milwaukee Bucks throughout the season, but when it comes to the playoffs, Milwaukee Bucks don't do so well. But then the Milwaukee Bucks, they had the time. They kept having time and time to get there, and now I think their time is over. You have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, Jamal Crawford, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, and you have all these players. DeAndre Jordan. The Brooklyn Nets are just building a franchise. They're trying to get back in. They're trying to get back to the playoffs. I think this is a possible finals appearance and maybe an NBA championship. Who knows? Because you have Kyrie Irving has 1 championship. Kevin Durant has 2 championships. He has that experience, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that could really help out. Kyrie Irving averaging 27.4 points per game in only 27 games, scoring 500 points. That's very, very successful. And Kyrie Irving, he's consistently getting his points up. Now, the one time he did decline was when he joined the Boston Celtics in 2018.
Yeah.
When he was with Boston in 2018.
Yeah. There was a decline.
His points, it wasn't as up. But after that, he got himself on track, and it's kept increasing, and now look at him. He's a very skilled offensive player. His defense, he can see the defense, and the 3-point percentage and the assist numbers on the Brooklyn Nets have went up since Kyrie Irving went there.
So this might be his time.
This is his
time.
time.
Might be his time. Especially the roster that you just mentioned.
Yep.
For the Brooklyn Nets, this could be it for them. All right, so Dylan, how will the Los Angeles Lakers trade moves possibly help with bring an 18th championship?
One of the moves that will help is they got rid of key players like Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, and Danny Green. But what they also did, they brought great players like Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder. Both of those players are six Man of the Year candidates, and they really help assist the starting lineup of their teams. So Dennis Schroeder was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Dennis Schroeder averaged 18.9 points, 46.9 field goal percentage. That can really help the Los Angeles Lakers when you have that, because he's a very consistent point guard. When you have that consistent point guard, in my opinion, that's what the Lakers really needed. They had the forwards, they had the big men, but they didn't have the guard. Danny Green wasn't consistent. You had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but his position isn't guard. His position is more like small forward.
Okay.
So what they really need was a consistent guard, and now they have that. They have a guard that can really help the starting lineup and can do equally as well on the bench. And you have Montrezl Harrell, who was coming from the Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay.
And Montrezl Harrell, very skilled player.
Okay.
He's not the average height you would expect for a big man, but he has the strength and endurance of a big man playing in the NBA. He averages 18.6 points per game. That could really help the Los Angeles Lakers get that spark. And even though they gave away players like Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, they got even better players right now that can really help. I think that's what's going to bring the Lakers a championship. With all these new threats coming, now you have a bunch of new players that can really help out with that. You have players other than Anthony Davis and LeBron James who can average more than 20 points.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's like, you know, although there's like some threat now, you know, in the actual, you know, NBA itself, it's like now the Lakers, they position themselves for the championship. It's almost like a war going on. Yep. And they just traded some of their weapons. You just got some better weapons now.
Yep, it's like an upgrade.
Yeah.
It's like you went from a catapult just spikes on fire.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in into some 2020 NBA offseason trades.
Stay tuned for another episode of DEAZZ Netz.